Many people like to say, you never know what you have until it's gone. This could be a job, a relationship, or a financial situation. But what if that something or someone left when you were too young to even remember? What if your only reminders are memories, photos, and stories? This is a threshold that can be emotionally challenging to cross, and ultimately was a part of my own experience. As a society, we have this idea of a timeline that we have to follow when it comes to grieving a loss. Why is that? Is it because talking about grief makes us uncomfortable? Personally, I believe so. Just because someone accepts the reality of a loss does not mean that they have to let that person go. Instead, we can lean into a community where talking about grief is natural and comfortable. On August 27th, 2003, I was in the car with my mom and my older brother on our way to my grandparents' house when we collided with another vehicle. I woke up in the hospital to discover that I had a broken left arm and a permanent scar on my left hand. My mom and brother did not survive the accident. Sitting in that hospital bed at 3 years old, I had no idea what me and my dad's future was going to look like. I was barely comprehending the idea that two of the most influential people in my life were gone before I even got to know them. 18 years later, and I am still processing this loss. It took me until high school to finally realize that grief is an ongoing process. So if someone were to tell my high school self that I was giving a TEDxHopeCollege talk about my life, I would have had a lot of questions for you. But growing up, I was often asked about this scar. And normally I would respond and just say that I was in an accident and then attempt to change the subject because it honestly got annoying after a while. However, I was avoiding a major part of my life without even realizing it, and it was beginning to affect different aspects of me as well. I was attending physical therapy to build back the muscles in my hand, but I was also facing behavioral issues at school from the trauma. This began a frustrating time as I was trying to wrestle with the messy and the complicated emotions that come with grief. Let's fast forward to when my dad began dating again. He met my stepmom through some family friends who had informed him that she had a story similar to his. She lost her husband from a brain tumor, which left her with a son 13 months younger than me. They even went to the same college, but their paths had just never crossed. So they began going on dates in September of 2004 and would often just go to restaurants and talk for hours. This left me with my soon-to-be stepbrother. And initially, I just saw this as another play date, and I wasn't fully registering that my dad was actually dating again. Looking back, it was just refreshing for me to see him happy. He was opening up again, and this helped the both of us in the long run. I remember my stepmom's house had this really cool train set with these wooden tracks in the basement that we used to play with. To be fair, I was a pretty bossy child when it came to playing pretend. Yeah, my dad tells me that I always told him what to say with the toys, and I had to be in charge of everything. So I'm guessing that was the root of my type A personality that I definitely still have. Thankfully, my stepbrother Caleb was very patient, and we had a lot of fun together. After a period of time where I didn't have a brotherly figure in my life, I was able to realize that this is something that's really meaningful to me. I officially became part of a blended family in July of 2005 at a small Presbyterian church in Waunakee, Wisconsin, surrounded by our friends and extended family. There are many beautiful moments from this day, but these stood out to me the most. First, my stepbrother and I walked down the aisle together holding these vases with white roses. My roses symbolize my mom and my brother, and my stepbrother's rose symbolizes his dad. Next, the four of us lit a candle together at the center of this altar, another beautiful symbol for all of us that we were now a family, a real family. As exciting as this was, we were also about to begin this new process of adjusting to life as a blended family. And although there are official terms that you have heard, like step-parents, step-siblings, and half-siblings, this is actually something that my family doesn't use. In my eyes, my stepmom is the mom that I have grown up with, and my two brothers are just as important to me, no matter what label that they would be given. This is just an example of how every blended family is different, and that you should be able to discuss these topics like your family's preferred terms openly and honestly. It can be difficult to understand the idea of starting from the ground up when someone new enters your life, but this is the experience for many blended families. I can say that although I have adjusted to a new maternal relationship, this is also a process with its ups and downs. For example, there are moments in my life where I wish that I could talk to my biological mom because maybe she would better understand what I was going through. These are hard moments for me. Sometimes I just feel distant and disconnected from everything that I thought I knew, like I'm trying to find my way through a very dark and very long tunnel. But at the same time, I love my stepmom. She is caring, and she's supportive, and she encourages me to go for the things that I want. She even introduced my love for musicals, and she has one of the most beautiful singing voices you'll ever hear. I would never want her to feel like she was a second choice. These thoughts, they often make me feel guilty or like I'm not appreciative of my family because I know that there are people in my situation who did not get as fortunate as I did. So I usually just keep all of this to myself because then I think, who else do I know who would understand what I am going through? In these moments, my parents encourage me to lean into honoring my mom. And the same goes for them for whenever they begin to miss their spouses. My stepmom understands that it is okay for my dad to still love my mom. That's something that can't go away. This is when the idea of holding on, it becomes valuable to a person because it helps to preserve their memory. These experiences allow my family tree to blossom into something beautiful and fruitful, something that was once withered and broken after this loss that seemed too difficult to endure can now thrive. Because of my blended family, I'm now able to plant my roots more firmly than ever before. When my half-brother, Luke, was born in 2007, this was a big moment for the Johnson household because now we had a sibling who shared a blood relation with us. But I will admit that there was some jealousy at first, right? Because how can you not be when you're used to having all of the attention on you? You can call me conceited, but you tried changing a dirty diaper when that was the last thing you wanted to do when you were 7. Gross. There were more responsibilities being piled onto everyone's lives, and we had to work together to make sure everything didn't just crumble. This included quality time, effective communication, and patience. So in the end, I like to think that we made it work. So you might be surprised to learn that my family's story is actually one among thousands within the United States. A 2015 study done from the Pew Research Center showed that there is no longer one dominant family form within the US. This study found that over a 3-year period, 3 in 10 children under 6 have experienced a significant change in their family or household structure. As someone with this experience, I was surprised to read that number. The study also found that 16% of children are living in blended families, 8% living with a step-parent, and 12% living with step or half siblings. Oftentimes, the success of a step family can rest on the child and how well they connect with both their step-parent and biological parent. However, I believe that the love we show our families, nuclear or otherwise, doesn't have to be finite. Ultimately, a lifestyle where you are supported by your loved ones should be a priority. So, what can we take away from all of this talk about grief? Well, most importantly, that timeline that society has created for grieving is something that we should not work towards. The goal that we can fulfill instead is having that courage to hold on. Also, those feelings that come with grief don't have to be mutually exclusive. You can feel totally fine one day and devastated the next, and that is completely natural. Trust me, I know. When you begin to have those thoughts about your person, like I should have said this, or I could have done this, that is when you can receive support from others. To anyone who has experienced a personal loss, you are not alone. Having one person who will listen and support you can make the biggest difference. Maybe your friends, relatives, a teacher, a coworker, or even a therapist. And if you can't think of someone in your life who can do that for you, then let me be the first. Even if you haven't experienced a loss, this is a time when you can now be a listening ear. You might not even be aware that you're doing it, but I encourage you to lean in to that discomfort. Tonight, I stand here as an example and an advocate for amplifying the conversation about loss. Because the people we have lost, they've never truly left. I know that my mom and my brother are listening right now. We can find ways to thrive in the hardships, and that first step is to begin the conversation. Thank you.